labor and also the quality of the skills. But we do look at it proactively to raise the capacity or the skills of both our own employees and working together with our customers. So we're looking at a number of cooperation initiatives with the government and also with universities here, so that we can pick up the talents so that they can come work for us and have a specialization within the supply chain and logistics sector, which I think is a very important issue. And we're working also, for instance, in Singapore, we established two supply chain centers of excellence, and we're looking at doing the same here in Malaysia, to have really a center where we can attract young talents and increase the competence of the sector.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, can I just ask you to just think about some questions that you may want to raise to our eminent panel, please? But I wanted now just to turn my attention to Fermin. Fermin, in your opening remarks, you did very much focus on the human capital issue and so on. What do you think within your particular industry sector that Malaysia needs to do to actually make sure that it remains competitive and efficient and so on, and that companies such as yourself will continue to invest in Malaysia, while recognizing that human capital is a very, very important part?
Thank you, David. I think that one of the suggestions, or the ideas that I would give here is, first of all, to try to increase the supply of skilled labor, and that is not easy to do, because when you say skilled labor, you have to have a pretty close understanding of what industry needs, and sometimes, and this happens in this country and in many countries, at least that I lived in, the universities are not that aligned with what industry really requires. And I think that's a gap that we have here, and I've seen it in many countries. So I think we need to establish more cooperation between industry and local academia, and that we can do it in different ways. You can exchange people, you can have more practitioners and professionals teaching at universities. That's one way of doing it. And vice versa, you can encourage professors to do more work with industry or with government, because that will exchange ideas. Other ideas, for example, we haven't seen enough practice in Europe and in the US. We have a lot of exchange students or internships. And a lot of the younger students, whether they're graduates or in school, have internships with companies. We see some of that, but probably it's not enough. Because I will try to close the gap, at least in terms of aligning what industry needs and what the local universities are offering. I still think that we can do more to increase just the sheer supply of graduates, for at least for the technology sector, because the demand is there. We've heard from my colleagues here that this is a balanced place. We have a good base, and there's some obviously improvements to do, and we need to make sure that we remain competitive as a middle-income platform. But I think that we can do more to attract more universities to come here and work with the local universities, to offer more courses, and to also bring new technologies and new ways of working.
Thank you very much. So with that, are there any questions at all from the audience? Please. I can't believe we've answered all.
I'd just like to get some insight from everyone on the panel as well. How would you evaluate your investments into ASEAN in particular, and ASEAN in general, and perhaps Malaysia in particular, in light of the changing socioeconomic conditions of many of the countries over here as well? I think, I'm sure we'll all agree that ASEAN is in a state of flux. There's a lot of political change happening in many countries, and you only need to observe the events that will happen on Saturday to know that it's happening here in Malaysia as well. So how do you evaluate your long-term outlook on the region in particular? And maybe that's a question for our foreign panelists and for our Malaysian panelists as well. I'm sure you've been asked these questions when you speak to foreign investors. How do you address that, and what is your response to that? Thank you.
I think, I think in general, I would say that there's a very, very large potential in ASEAN. I mean, we heard the numbers, the population size, but having said that, ASEAN is very diverse, right? We have countries with large population bases and with income per capita maybe below $4,000 US, and then we have other countries with $50,000 US capita income, and then we're here in the middle, right? So there's a lot of diversity, I think, and levels of development, which I think will create a challenge to really integrate the bloc of the countries into a single trading bloc and into a single market. I mean, the way we see it, we operate, my company operates in a number of countries in ASEAN, here in Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines. And obviously we're watching all the developments in the other countries, but even with these 4 to 5 countries, I mean, the market is very, very large. For an IT service company is large. I would think that for a consumer services entity is very large, for logistics. So I think it has a big potential. I think it'll take time to exploit that potential because of the differences in development of the countries involved in ASEAN.
Thank you. Asa?
Well, YBhg has been based in the region, and we're based in over 220 countries and territories around the world. We have to be everywhere. So we have been here a long time, and in Malaysia, particularly since 1973, our first business unit, Digital Express, established itself here. And it's only been upwards since, I would say. Increasingly, as part of the group revenues and profits, ASEAN is increasingly prominent, but so are the other dynamic regions such as Africa and Latin America. How we prepare ourselves for this is we do look strategically in increasing investments. Also here in Malaysia, for instance, we're planning new warehouses, new airport gateway or new airport facilities, new service centers, and so on. But we also do invest in Europe still, so it's not that Europe is a dead market, but definitely here it's an increasing Asia and ASEAN in particular is an increasing share of total revenues. It is also, as I would add also that it is a diverse market. It's not a single, we don't see it as a single market, although we do see that there's more and more intra-ASEAN trade. I think more than, I say, the figures on trading goods reveal where there's intra-ASEAN trade of, I think, 23% or something. In services and in transport service, you see that this intra-Asia and intra-ASEAN trade is definitely increasing. But as much as tariffs have been removed, there are also other issues that need to be addressed in order for it to be a more, say, homogeneous market or integrated regions. It's non-tariff barriers, it's customs procedures, it's foreign direct investment, ownership rules, and so on.
Thank you very much. Any comments from Mr. Phang or Dato Sri?
I would look at it from a supply chain perspective. Again here, the question that you have to ask yourself is, what type of services are you involved in, or what type of products are you going to produce? You have to look at the whole ecosystem, here. In fact, recently there was a dialogue, between Obama and corporate America, and was asking the American businessmen, why are you not investing, in America, but in Asia, mostly? Is it because of cost? The American businessman said, cost is just a small portion. The main determinant was actually the supply chain. The supply chain today, in many industries, is much, much more integrated in this part of the world, than in EU or also in America, especially in electronics and electrical industry. Just take for example, if you look at the solar industry, although now it is undergoing some serious consolidation, this is an industry where we started about just 5 years ago in Malaysia, and I can say that that is the most integrated part of the electronics industry in Malaysia, even more integrated than the semiconductor industry. They have already the full supply chain here, right from quartz, into metal silicon, into polysilicon, into ingots, cells, module, panel, and inverters, and finally assembly within 5 years. So if you are in that business, or whatever business that you are doing in this part of the world, you have to position yourself and look at the supply chain. Where are you? If we are talking about setting up an operational headquarters here, big multinationals, then you'll be looking at maybe setting up a global services center, a global delivery center. And that is what most of the big multinational companies are doing in Malaysia. And we are not looking at just ASEAN. If you go beyond the border, you have the ASEAN plus 3. You look at China, Korea, as well as Japan. It's huge, the market. So, that's my take. If you want to do business in this part of the world, you have to ask yourself the question, is there a supply chain for my product or my service? If there's none or if it's weak, then we're going to have some challenges. If it's already there, it will be much easier, although the competition might be there, but at least the market is there for you in this part of the world.
Thank you very much. Sri.
Thank you. I think for an investor, they will go to the places where they feel they're going to make money. Simple as that. And they will do all kinds of analysis, including risk analysis of the country or the region they're going into. I think ASEAN as a region at the moment is the most stable in this part of the world as far as investment is concerned. And it's manifested by your presence, I would say. But as far as the services sector is concerned, it is still very, very, it's in infancy, I would say. And I spoke to my colleagues in Europe, and they say, hey, we don't have much work here in Europe. Why don't you guys take some of us? I think that's a major export from Europe, of skilled professionals and labor. I think we should look into that. See how you could, get some of these people over here. Maybe a system could be devised, to assist in the region.
Okay, thank you very much. Time is moving on. I saw one lady over there wanted to ask a question.
It has gone through quite a long process to liberalize ourselves. So the thing is, and then there's also a proponent that Malaysia, in a way to liberalize ourselves, then we must do it in our own mold. So there's also a question on, like Tan mentioned, on this adherence to the domestic rules and regulations. And in a way that probably looking at how the world evolves, has it been some of these, our own molding is actually a hindrance to what we may have to further liberalize? I mean, what kind of liberalization that we need further for Malaysia to maybe not to be behind Singapore anymore? I would say that Singapore has only our own way of developing themselves, and Malaysia has our own agenda, our economic agenda as well. But we can kind of afford to be in the middle income group. It's dangerous. So how we do actually go forward? And as mentioned as well by the panelists, we are not still quite there in the services sector. So what else should we do? And my next question probably be, well, could it be the reason why Malaysia is not a party to the government procurement agreement in the WTO would be one of the reasons, or probably I don't know, as an investor will discount in terms of transparency, probably. Thank you.
This has already answered that question because I asked earlier, if I may. Fermin, would you have any specific comments in that regard? What would be further liberalised, or what you could actually do? And then perhaps the second question was looking at the access to public procurement and so on.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I personally